Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your host, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hello, friends. We are so happy that you've joined us for Hope After Addiction today. How are you?
I am good and pregnant.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. I'm trying to calculate when we're going to release this to when she's going to have her baby, because we get ahead and when we record, and we're doing that specifically so she has maternity
Yes.
leave.
Yeah.
So she might have already had her baby by now.
I know, which
that
is
weird?
hard
There's-
to
oh,
believe.
you're about to eat it.
Don't do that.
Sorry. There's a gnat. I'm not slapping
Welcome
your
to
face.
summertime. I saw a huge roach a minute ago. I was like, oh, summer's here.
Yeah. So it's like an
Uh,
exciting time around here.
It is a very exciting time.
I can't wait.
How are you?
I'm good. Ain't nothing new, just in the middle of summer and trying to keep kids busy and all the things.
All the
So,
camps.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to look for more, but they're just so daggum expensive.
That's what I've heard.
I mean, you just got to do it times two. I have some friends that have 4 kids, and I'm like, I don't know. Then they'll never go to camp.
No, we'll have home camp.
Try to find like different VBSs. They're free.
Yes. I do know some, they'll literally hit every church, which
Yeah.
is fun. The kids have a blast.
Yeah.
So,
We've done that a few summers where we've done like 2
Yeah.
or so, but
Yep.
it's fun. So today we are going to talk about when life looks different than you ever thought it would, and boy, oh boy, is that the case
Yep.
for us.
I wish we had a live audience today where we could do a raise of hands of how many had the life that you thought you would.
Yeah, I know, and I bet their whole audience would be like, yeah, would be like,
Nope.
preach it.
Yeah, big fat no. Big fat no.
Yeah, no, it's not anything like I thought it would be.
Mm-mm. And I really was thinking last night, I was like, what did you think life would look like as a kid? And I mean, I really dreamed of the white picket fence, the kids that came easily, were great kids, the husband that was just amazing, no addiction problems,
Yeah,
we
I didn't
just
even know what addiction was.
Yeah, we just didn't have any struggles. But God.
But God. So Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a person's heart. So it's in the Bible. People were doing it way back then too.
Yep.
Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And I think that that word purpose sticks out to me, because we can plan it all we want to, but God has a purpose for your life, and He will prevail. And so, and whatever that looks like. So, yeah, I did not even know when I look back on my life. I didn't even, my testimony. If you want to go back and listen to my testimony, we have an episode on it, or 2. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. But I kind of grew up where I'd never even heard of addiction, and it was not even in my vocabulary. And so when Adam told me about it, I was like, well, that's fine.
Yeah. Well,
It's just
Modium, you're
flush.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Modium, maybe. Yeah. What was it? The Pepto-Bismol.
Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah.
On your carpet.
I was like, we'll flush those babies down the
Yep.
toilet, and we'll give you some Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, it's all done. It's all over.
I didn't know. So yeah, I didn't even understand it. And so I didn't even know that it could be a part of my plan, much less my whole story pretty much.
Right. You're like, this is a large chapter of my,
Huge chapter.
yeah, this is the biggest chapter of my book.
So, but yeah, so even when I look at that verse, naturally as humans, we plan out our lives. And so even back then, people were doing it.
All
And
the
so
time.
it's a good reminder for them too,
It's a great reminder. And I love that you brought up purpose, because I had listened to a sermon years ago, and I was not even a mom then. I think I was going through infertility. But whoever's watching this, like, you have a purpose. Your husband has a purpose. Your son has a purpose. Your daughter has a purpose. And we have no control over what that purpose is. And so the pastor was giving that, like, your child has a destiny, and we can't control that. We can't change that. God has put a destiny and a purpose over his or her life, your husband, whoever that may be, for God's purpose. And that looks a lot different than what our purpose is for our child.
Yeah.
Or our husbands or our wives. We don't want to go through the things that we've had to go through, but God has a purpose for it.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of surrender to surrender to God's plan because he loves them more than our plan. And that's hard.
Yeah. So how do you react to, if you look back on your life, how do you react to the change that you thought you?
Well, I didn't always react well.
Samesies.
Yep. At 36, I'm beginning to have a little more grace in that. But I think to embrace it and to surrender to it. And I think in the middle, and I've talked about this a lot, but to praise him for what he's doing and to trust what he's doing. And Katie and I talked a little bit about that on the last episode, is to trust in what he's doing because we can't see it. And I'm learning that at 36, that I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he has. I don't know what he's protecting me from. He does. And at this point, and seeing the hindsight, seeing the silver lining on the other side, I can now see that. I didn't always, and I would fight it, and I would control it, and I would rebuke it, and I'm beginning to receive and be still in what it is. What about you?
I feel like I am sometimes, I was trying to think of how I was trying to be like all nice about it and be like, I mean, it was fine. I just kind of rolled with it. But I really envisioned myself when I was going through the stuff with Adam, like a little three-nager with my arms crossed in the corner going, no.
I love that. I have a three-nager now as of 2 Tuesdays ago. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Adam calling me when he was done with the program, and they asked him to come on staff. And there was like only 2 of them at the time, so they needed some more staff. And so they asked him to intern and to eventually, and so he's interning. I was still in Knoxville, but then they asked him to come on staff. And I remember
the three-nager, no.
no, thank you. I don't want to leave Knoxville. And so he was like, I mean, I already know the answer to this when he called me. He's like, I already know the answer to this because, you know, you love your family and you love Knoxville. But they're really wanting me to pray about being on staff. And I was like, not prayer. Don't ask me to pray.
Yep.
Because you know what that means sometimes. So
Oh, yeah.
I was like, fine. So, yeah, I was definitely like a teenager or a three-nager.
Yep.
For sure. So
Resisting.
I don't always react well to change, I will say.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it.
And it's hard. And some goes back to personality types.
Yeah.
Some people are absolutely against change, no matter what kind. Some people embrace it. I like change. I like to move. I like to move to different houses. Like I like change. But when it comes to this, I found myself more like stubborn with being in my comfort zone.
Yeah, because I think that the uncertainty, like once you move and what happens with relapse, and because you hear about that stuff, oh my goodness, what if I'm up in my whole life and it just doesn't work out? I mean, I had to put a lot of trust in what the Lord was telling me to do.
Yes.
Because he had been clean for a while because by that time he had gone through the program, he had done his internship, but I was still moving my entire life into, I knew nobody other than him. I was like, dear Lord, you better know what you're doing.
That's right. As if you don't. But we oftentimes think, like, when this stuff has happened, like, God, you don't know what you're doing. And I mean, it's comical to think that like that is an honest thought. Like, we know better, God.
I'm going to think that you don't know exactly what you're telling me to do right now. But I mean, it was so clear to me. If you go back and listen to my thing, is when it was like, so they had said, pray for it for 3 days. And I was like, no. But okay. So I, like in the second day of praying, my boss offered me a promotion in Middle Tennessee. I was like, okay. I guess you know what you're doing.
Can't deny it. But that also led to a lot more trust for you
and
a lot more trust for us in the season.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely trickled and be like, you just got to trust the process. You got to trust the plan. It's scary. It's unknown. But I'm not saying how I reacted was the right way, but it was the way that I reacted. So,
yeah. And that's a natural thing. We're human.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot.
Yeah, we have.
A lot.
And hopefully I react better if God
says move to Alaska tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I know.
Yeah. So anyway, no, that's not a thing. But you're
No.
probably looking and going, "Is God calling me to go?"
No. I'm like, that's really out of your comfort zone now.
John would love it.
No, yeah, he would love it. He would love to go back. Yep. Yep.
So when everything's said and done, when you're looking at your ways versus God's ways are always going to be better than ours.
Always.
Hindsight's always interesting, right? But his plans are going to always surpass anything that you could have ever understood. Now, the process to get there is not always easy. But when I look at my life, and I mean, it's all funny and stuff. Yes, I didn't want to do it and all that stuff. But when I look back on it, and I've said this multiple times in multiple episodes, but I could not have imagined a better life.
Ever.
And so when I think about, my life and what like you said, the white picket fence, that's for sure what I think that's a natural thing to like want, right? But I would have never thought my life looked like this, but I'm so happy that it does. I have 2 kids. I had to wait for them for a while. I have a husband that loves me. I love him. We have a house. I mean, he's over the ministry of S2L. Like, I just would have never. But I'm so happy for it.
So happy and so grateful. And I mean, I tell my girls this when I work with them. I'm like, I know this sounds crazy, but I am thankful today for what I went through. And I say it a lot especially with John, is that I have the husband that I have today because of addiction. There's so many in our life that have found God because of addiction, which is crazy. Still with clients, well, how did you move here?
Yeah.
Drugs,
Yeah.
story starter, like drugs
Let
is
me
how,
tell you.
I mean, it's crazy, but I think about the husband I have today who loves the Lord, is so on fire and is so solid. Like, I don't have that lukewarm husband. I have a husband that's on fire, and because of drugs, that's what God gave me. And so if that's what God had to do, even for one person to end up in the eternal heaven because of drugs and what we had to walk through, it's all worth it.
It is all worth it.
All worth it.
I know. I get that too about what brought you to
How'd you
Middleton?
get here?
It's a story. You ready?
Yeah, that's
Buckle up.
exactly right. I'm always like, depending on who's asking, I'm like, oh, here we go. But it's our ministry. Like, that's how God gives us that in to, like, let me tell you about God's goodness. It's always a fun.
I mean, I'll be in the middle of, I remember one of my last times, I was in the middle of like a jump, like one of those jump places.
Yeah.
And I was sitting next to a random person. They were like, so what brought you? I mean, you've known me for like 2 minutes. I'll tell you my story.
Tell you how deep it gets.
Let me tell you. And I love watching their face. They're like, oh, that's interesting.
And the crazy is some really needed that.
Yeah, that's right.
Some give you the side eye, but some are like, oh, let me tell you about.
And they a lot of times do have a story because so many people are affected by addiction. And y'all know that. I mean, it's unreal. And so it definitely touches, somebody in a way that you might not have ever known.
Yeah.
Isaiah 55, 8-9. It says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'm so glad like there's not like a cap, because we just are so human, and God's ways are so much better than you could have ever thought. So.
I think it goes back to parenting. I was actually just talking to Carlos about this, just the things that we fear for our children. And, it's summer here. We live on a bunch of land, and snakes are my thing. And it's like protecting Jasper. And we had lots of trees down in the yard from the tornadoes, and there was a snake in the tree. And when we were cleaning up, and it's like telling Jasper, don't go too close, but Jasper can't see what I see. And that's when God's ways are higher than our ways. My ways are higher than Jasper's ways, physically too. Yeah. But that is how God, he knows and he sees the spiritual battle that we're fighting that we can't fight. So even when it's hard, and I go back to like the trivial, how many times have you been going somewhere and you had to be somewhere and there's like a slow person in front of you, or every red light you hit, but then you get up a mile and there was a bad car accident, or there was a policeman stopped where you know you were going to get a ticket. And it's such a trivial reminder that like God knows every second of our life. He knows what's up ahead and we can't see that. And every time, even with a cop or an accident, I'm so humble because I'm like, God, you knew that I was about to get a speeding ticket this morning. You know, like you knew this.
Your ways are higher than ours.
Yep, but he can see what we can't see. And I have to remind myself in the hard, and we have had personally so many spiritual battles in our life personally in the last few weeks. And it's like, God, I can't see what you can, but you do know.
Something that I want to encourage you as listeners, as you're going through a challenging situation, whatever it may be. A lot of our listeners are dealing with an addict at home, or somebody's going through recovery, maybe just got out of recovery. You're dealing with some sort of, and it might not be any of that. It might be something completely different. And you just like to hear Hope After Addiction podcast, which we are so happy for. But whatever challenging situation that you have, something that I want to challenge you with is how can you bring beauty or purpose out of your situation? Maybe just sit down and pray about that.
Yeah.
Sit down and pray about it. Sit down and write it out.
Yeah.
How can you, it's just something I felt like I needed to encourage the listeners just to do. It's just to sit down and think about your situation. My son, he is in recovery. This is my challenge. I'm constantly worried about him. I don't know if he's going to relapse. I don't know if this is going to happen. Is he going to make it? It's whatever situation you're in. How can there be beauty and purpose out of this situation? And dream about it for a minute.
Yeah. And it's such an encouragement because we get so clouded from our current situation and the heaviness. And like Katie and I know, like we know personally, some of our listeners, it is heavy. It is life-changing. There's death in it. It's a heaviness that you couldn't ever even explain to somebody. And so we get so bogged down that we can't see what God is doing. And so to meditate on that. Like, what God you do to bring beauty out of this? Because if we don't do that, we are so dark. We get so lost in the dark that we can't see the light of what he wants to do. And I love that encouragement because if you don't have somebody to encourage you to do that, it's easy to stay in that place. And not see God.
And plead with God. And you might be like sitting there going, but literally there's nothing that can be beautiful out of this. Then just sit in silence and even just ask God, show me the beauty that can come from this situation. Reveal to me the beauty and the purpose that can come out of this situation. And it took us a little while to understand God's purpose in that. But there's so much purpose in what I've been through, right? So much beauty that came out of it. And I'll forever be thankful for the trial of addiction, which is wild.
Never thought I'd say that in a million years.
I'm so thankful that God put us through it. I don't want to go through it ever again. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I'm so thankful for the trial. I'm so thankful for going through that because it made me stronger. It made Adam stronger. It made us stronger. It made my just relationship with the Lord so much stronger. So there was beauty and purpose out of it. So we encourage you just to ask the Lord to reveal some beauty and purpose out of your situation.
And I do want to remind you on that line that it's so easy when we don't have the life that we thought we would have to blame it on somebody else that caused that. Like because of John, we had to move to Tennessee. I had to give up everything. We had to, but this is your story. God allowed this, and God is in the details for you. And because of John's addiction, God worked miracles in my heart. God changed my heart. God literally romanced every part of my heart so that I would know him deeper. And so just recognize that you may be in that bitter place because your life does not look like what it used to be or what you thought it would be. And so walk into that forgiveness so that you can walk into the purpose of your pain and to use it for God's glory and God's goodness, because this is your story and His plan over your life, not just the one that you may be struggling with.
That's good.
So
Mic drop.
Done.
That's good. Well, we hope that you found some encouragement today with whatever you're going through, and that you find beauty and you find purpose as you lean on the Lord for answers. And so we are so thankful for you, and we hope that you join us next week. If you do find you listening on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe so you can see when we release our next one. You can message us on Instagram or Facebook, Hope After Addiction, or you can email us, hopeafteraddiction@gmail.com. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out. We'll be glad to answer those. And we hope that you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.